the
Yeah, and
personality.
I would say to any bass player, if you feel like your bass playing's going well, get into the piano or get into the guitar. You definitely. Well, first of all, I think every bass player should be at least be able to play one of those other instruments,
Mm.
or harmonic instruments, to a certain level. Like I'm a brutal guitar player, but like I can play all the chords.
Yeah,
The kind of.
same here.
Uh,
I'm good at teaching guitar, and I can play it at home, but I'll
yeah,
never play it in public ever again. 'Cause it's just
yeah,
I've got bass fingers, and that's it.
yeah. Well, this is it. But like, if you didn't play the guitar, like if I didn't play the guitar, and I have to break down a song, like I might have 5 songs to break down before I go into the late late, and I'm not one of these people who writes out. I'm not going to write out the bass part. I'm certainly not going to just work out the bass part and go, that's grand. You kind of go, I want to know what the harmony is. So you listen to it and you go, well, I think it's this, and I just double check it here, grand. And you want to know, that's a major, not a minor. That's you want to hear where the difficult bits are. I mean, it goes back to doing standards as well. That's great. That's a great thing. With you can't get away with anything if you're trying to walk a bass line. So you need to know the whole chord. You need to know, it's a 7 with a flat 13 or whatever it is. You kind of need to know. And like, I'm still, to believe me, I don't have it all sorted out, but something I'm constantly working on is trying to understand more about music, because there's so much to learn.
Yeah, it's amazing at the moment though, with like Rick Beato and all these people online.
Yeah,
Like, I've learned so much in the last 4 years about music theory that I hadn't
yeah,
a clue of before. It's just all this YouTube stuff is just amazing for
yeah, and it's
knowledge.
it's
Like,
fun, isn't it? It's fun to okay, it's a rabbit hole you could go down and get obsessed by, and to no end. But if you're applying it back to what you're doing, then it's it's always going to be good for you. And like I always say, like, if you don't, it's like me learning the double bass. Go back to learning it properly. I mean, if you were to break it down on a practical level, I mean, every time, it's not like I'm going to earn mega bucks more because I played a double bass. Now, it's nice to be able to play both, and you do get the odd call. I do get the odd gig where I'm playing both. But like, on paper, sticking with the electric bass, I'll probably just do as fine. But I wanted to learn it, and it's fun. And I always find that if you do put the work into something, it usually pays off in ways you'll never guess in the future. It's not, when we did our first comedy album, with the Camber Quartet, like, we were doing, Latin versions of Stairway to Heaven. I didn't realize we get a television show out of it. You know what I mean? And that's more or less exactly what happened. We did something, like, I recorded and we self-produced it, and we probably sold about 1,000 of them at college gigs. The type of gig you saw in Clonmel there, like, it was that kind of crack. But we would do Stairway to Heaven in a Latin version. We probably played it that day to you, but we would have done lots of other stuff. And when we put that album together, it was like, there's no way anyone's going to buy it, but it's a bit of crack. And then Ryan Tubridy started playing it on the radio and getting us on the set.
I will say though, I was a bit depressed at that time because I was in the factory and I didn't have a band ratting, but I was impressed by the whole band. Like, your level of musicianship was,
well, they're great players, aren't they?
You were like a level above like the average pub. You were above a cover band you see in a pub generally. Like, I could tell.
Well, that was the
you
thing.
were all a
that
bit,
was the art school thing. Yeah, it was like, we're not going to play Mr. Brightside and as the record. Well, we can do that, and we'll do that at a wedding. But when we're doing that type of a gig, there's certain gigs where you can just do whatever you want and have the crack. And that scenario is the perfect example. We did so many gigs like that where it's, like you say, it's a load of factory workers or people working in a company that they're doing their job, and it's fine. But like, it's a lunchtime gig. I mean, are you going to sit? You're not going to rock out, are you? You're not going to sit there rocking out. You're not going to be. You don't want to hear like Po Face, Steely Dan covers. You have to have the crack, and that's what we designed the thing. It just came out of us naturally that way. Myself and Paddy, when we got together doing things, and then when we added in, like, me and Paddy would be the first to say, at the beginning, that we were the worst musicians in the band. We got like the best piano player, sax player. We got the best drummer we could find. But what I think what the other guys in the band realized is that with a bit of crack, their musicianship was allowed to shine. All we did was add a bit of crack into it and come up with some fresh ideas to do with playing covers, let's say. And you have to have that personality, like, the type of frontman that could get back at a heckler and beat the heckler every time. And I mean, we used to get bottled off for doing Jimi Hendrix covers in Latin style, and we did everything in a Latin style. It was like
that's your go-to. Like usually it's like they do a pop song, a sad version, or they'll do a happy version of a sad song. You just do a Latin version of everything.
Yeah, we used to just and like somebody would be a big fan of Jimi Hendrix who'd come up to you at the side and say, "You stop playing that, I'm gonna kick your and like, okay, people aren't as it's 20 years later, people aren't as precious, let's say, anymore.
Dogmatic about these genres.
But that's the reaction we were looking for. It was like, we're doing something right. If there's some hater out there, that's great. You're at least you're they didn't see this one coming, So it was and we used to do like Everything I Do it for You by Bryan Adams, but get the audience to give us chat up lines and put them all into the song. And do it on the stage, like, so, that kind of stuff. It was definitely an art school thing, but but like you say, add in the brilliant musicianship from the other guys, and that's how I learned. Anything I learned is because I realized I was crap and these guys were brilliant, and I had to try and get to their level, and those guys were brilliant, and they still are, and I'm still trying to get to their level.
Oh, stop. Yeah, but you're right, I do that as well. I always play with musicians better than me. Like, it's the only way to push yourself. Like,
totally. That'd be the best piece of advice. And like the hard thing, I suppose, is probably trying to get to the point where those musicians will play with you. So you're obviously doing something right, Stephen.
Well, you get them a gig. If they're going to get paid, they don't care how shit you are. They're like,
there goes diversification. Book the gig there. Yeah, that's another thing. Don't be sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring. Yeah, try and book a gig. Like I said, when I got to double bass, I'm not blowing me on trouble here, but like, because we're bass players, if you don't book a gig, you won't be. I'm not used to people ringing me with gigs. I've realized over the years that you are better off trying to put a gig together, and that's where your network comes in, and playing with good people, and like you say, you put something good together that people will want, and then get good players to play it and put it like. That's my business, I suppose. I'm not trying to do a modern Irish rock album every year or every other year. I'm not. I'm just playing a few cover versions in it, trying to freshen it up and make it sound brilliant and sell it to the people, and at an event or whatever, or a corporate, and play it as well as possible and put a bit of pizzazz on it. And but like if you do that, you can do that. Anyone can do that. You just decide to do it, and it's willpower, really, is all it is.
And don't be afraid to sell yourself either. Like, if you're good, if the band is good, get paid what you're worth. Like,
and be realistic about yourself. I mean, I'd like to think, when you asked me to do this, I was like, is he mad? Why does he want to talk to me? Because like, okay, maybe the late is an interesting job, but I'm like I'm not like a name musician or anything like that. I'm just it's I'm a nobody, Stephen, but I'm not on. I do have
being too Irish now, being too self-deprecating,
but I don't want to be. But I do think I am self-deprecating by nature. I think if you're realistic about your abilities and where you're at as well, it's better, because you realize that you should always be thinking that you have to work hard at getting better, because otherwise you will never get better. And I definitely feel like that all the time. But while I'm on that stage, and if I can do the job, I'm delighted with myself. It's the best crack, so. And like, it's amazing that I have a job in the late still, and I'm still playing and having the fun. Like I said, there was no pathway here that was obvious. It was complete fluke, really.
Well, I think someone said, I think it was Dave Swift was saying, people always say to him, "You're so lucky to be on the thing," and he says it wasn't luck. You might use a different word, because I put all this I worked really hard, and if I got the audition for that gig and I wasn't good, I wouldn't have got the gig. So all the luck in the world wouldn't have given me this gig. Like, so it's a lot of hard work, really, as well, and then a bit of luck for the opportunities to come. Like,
no, it is. I mean, like, but like, I'd be the first to say, though, like I say, that I always feel like I'm probably the worst musician on the stage, and I don't mind that. I know. Look, I know I've put work in to a level that I'm happy with in a lot of ways, and I know that I can do the job I do, and I really enjoy it. So that's the thing. But look, look, I'll take that. Dave Swift is a fantastic player. I mean, geez, like, like he I suppose I have that. It's a typically Irish thing, but I have that that problem in that I am self-taught, and people who are self-taught are always going to be like, uh, a bit wary of saying, I'm brilliant, aren't I? I did it all by myself. When like I know all the mistakes that I, could clear. I'd like, let me put it this way. I would love to take 2 years out now and go back to New Park or somewhere and spend 2 years studying, like at my age. And, it's kind of funny because I love it more than ever in a way, playing the bass, and I would just enjoy that. And I know if I came out the other side of that, it wouldn't make any difference really to my life in terms of it making me a better player. I know it would, because I could be able to practice more than an hour a day. But it probably wouldn't change anybody else's perception of me. It'd be all for myself, because I know in my head, I'd be going, I'd love to be better. I'd love to be better. I'd love to have the time to be better. And if I'd only done it before I was 17, or when I only done it in my 20s, but like, look, we are where we are. This is it.
I have to say, I think you're doing an hour a day is class, like, because that kind of practice builds up over time in a serious way. So if you can get in an hour a day, like, that's really going to make a big difference. Like,
well, I won't lie. I mean, having a pandemic helped in the last 2 years.
Yeah, there's a bit of time for shedding.
And actually, it was good for the mental health too, because if you're like, I was trapped in the house. I have kids. I was homeschooling. Another great thing about this job is that I was able to do that, and and we did have I had the PUP, and I could stay home, and we managed to make ends meet, and it was great because I actually had a great time with the kids, but it allowed me, if I ever felt like, oh God, I'm just like, I'm down, or I feel like I'm trapped in this bloody house for the last 3 months, I go in and practice and play music, even if it wasn't. But usually, I have a routine, and I'm always working on something. And if you look back over 6 months, you go, yes, I'm better at that. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think it's nice. I think a lot of people can handle an hour a day, and like, it pays off when you go to do the gig. I found it. Did you find it really hard when you came out of the pandemic when you did your first gig? You were like, oh my God, I'm so rusty.
The chops were horrific. Like, it's the stuff you don't practice at home, like, the endurance and all that kind of stuff.